Well, hello, DCO Nation, and welcome back to another DCO Live. Guys, it is Thursday night. Russell, Tony, great to see you guys on. I know there's other guys on here tonight. It is Thursday night, and I don't know if you guys can hear the rumbling outside, but we have a pretty good little thunderstorm that is almost on top of us. So, honestly, this little podcast may be cut really short because I just looked at the map and there is a lot of red moving towards me right now. And I don't think I need to have all this electronics on, honestly, when this thunderstorm rolls through. But we're gonna push on through and get some things done. So, guys, remember this is your show. If you guys have any questions, just go ahead and throw them up there into the chat box. And matter of fact, I am going to turn that back on. So when the comments come through, they will show up there on the bottom right hand corner of the screen so that you guys can all kind of follow along. So tonight, I wanted to touch on a topic that I have been hearing about for really, gosh, I'm going to say the last 4 or 5 months. I can't remember exactly when I first started hearing about this, but one of my favorite game fish that I'd love to hunt and fish for are redfish. And the fight that they have, and just an all around great fish. I keep hearing all of these stories about the decrease in population from South Carolina down to Florida, and it's a little bit concerning. We do know that there are a ton of people moving down here, and there are more and more people fishing our waters. And there is a agency, and I wrote it down so I get it right. It is the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission. They have conducted a stock study, and this was at the end of 2024. Now, my dates may be off a little bit because I read the articles a few days ago, so I'm paraphrasing, but you guys can Google this and read it for yourself. But basically, from South Carolina all the way down to the tip of Florida on the East Coast, they are seeing a decrease in redfish population. Now, they did say that some years are better for spawning than others. Maybe it was an off year. Maybe the weather conditions, they had the fry died or something like that. So, there are peaks and valleys with spawning of redfish. So, that's the only thing that they can go off of are the numbers that they get during that study. And so, it is concerning. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up is, you know, I don't want to see any type of, I want to say, more restrictions come on redfish. Right now, the bag limit is 2 fish, and we have a slot limit from 15 to 23 inches. And one of the facts that I found out this year that absolutely stunned me, and I'm going to put it up onto the screen. I actually got it from the website on Release Over 20, and they got this information from the SEDNR website. SEDNR has several research papers done, and one is on redfish. And this is where this information comes from. So you can double check that. You can go to SCDNR and pull up those research papers. But this absolutely shocked me when I found this out. And it says in slot redfish have probably never spawned. So our slot from 15 to 23 inches, those redfish have probably never spawned and laid eggs. And that is the slot that we can keep fish. So, you start doing the math, and, those are fish that are not getting put back into our fisheries. And, that just absolutely floored me. I thought once a fish basically hit sexual maturity, they were spawning. Well, obviously, redfish, they don't. And it says right there, it says males approximate age 4 or 28 inches. So that 15 to 23 inches, these redfish are probably anywhere from, I'm going to say, 2 to 4 years old, and they have never spawned in their life. And again, I was just absolutely just floored when I heard that. There are some other facts that I want to throw up here for redfish that I found absolutely fascinating. Another one was overslat redfish or the broad stock for the future. So it's important to minimize handling and keep them in the water. So, especially during their spawning seasons in the fall, that September, October timeframe, when we like to target the big bull redfish, we don't know what happens to these spawning fish when they're caught. When we take them out of the water and they're in their spawning cycle and we release them back in, we don't know if they continue to spawn or their spawning stops. We don't know the consequences or the results of that. So that is just kind of one thing to kind of keep in mind when you're hunting these big bull redfish during the fall, that you keep them in the water, you don't wear them out, you get them to the boat fairly quickly and release them right back and make sure that they kick off nice and healthy, because those are the broad stock that keeps the fishery stocked up with the fish that we love to catch and we love to eat. You know, I An 18-inch redfish is fantastic. Redfish on the half shell on the grill is just fantastic. If you guys know that, I'm a catch and release fisherman, but that doesn't mean I don't go to like Harrelson's Fish Market and pick up redfish. I love redfish, and it is just they're a great eating fish. Um, Ken just popped up a question. I'm going to put it up here, Ken. It said, "Hey, Chris, love your content. My question is, if I launch my kayak from Oyster, should I head north or south? I'm heading down in August from Columbia." Okay. So, Ken, I appreciate it. And August, man, it is going to be hot. Bring your sunscreen. So, basically, what I tell people, this is a question that I get quite a bit. Do I usually head north or south when I leave oyster recycling? 90% of the time, I head north because 90% of the inlet is north. So that's really the only reason. There's good fishing either way, whether you want to go south towards the state park or north towards the actual Murrells Inlet proper. You know, either way, there is good fishing. So, but yes, 90% of the time I go north because the majority of Murrells Inlet is north. So, and that's really the only reason. It's not because the fishing is any better than the south. I caught my PB flounder heading south, picked it up off of a small oyster bar. So, excuse me. So it doesn't, mean that the fishing is any better or worse or what. So yeah, man, that's awesome that you're coming down in August. So yeah, man, good luck to you. Tight lines, absolutely. Appreciate the question. And guys, remember, if you have a question about anything, whether it's on topic or off topic, I don't care. We'll stop and we will discuss whatever you guys want to talk about. Like I said, this is your show and this is why I do it. So fact number 3 that I wanted to throw out is juvenile red drum mainly inhabit estuaries, including tidal creeks and salt marshes. Adults inhabit the open ocean for much of the year, but take up residence in coastal sounds and inlets during late summer and fall when spawning occurs. So that is that whole, when you're targeting those big red drum, big bull reds in the fall time, when you do hook into them, keep them in the water, have your camera ready, snap your picture and get them right back and release back into the water. So that's oh, Alex just threw up another question. Alex, how you doing, buddy? He says, where is the best area in the inlet to pick up some redfish? Can't seem to get away from the flounder. Yeah. So, excuse me one second. Get a little bit of water here tonight. So when you're targeting redfish, I like to target redfish in shallower water. So if I'm going out, I will hit, like on high tides, I'll hit the flats, where the flats may be, at the high tide, maybe 3 feet deep. So anything 3 feet and under or shallower, 1 to 3 feet or 0 to 3 feet, those are the areas that I'm targeting redfish. Okay. And obviously during low tide, I am looking for these belly crawlers in the creeks where the water has flushed out and these redfish are cruising those shorelines. And that's where I am hunting red. So shallow water, back in the creeks and up on the flats is where I'm hitting these redfish, and that's how I'm doing it. Now, I also like hunting redfish around oyster bars. So if you know some big oyster bars that hold a lot of bait or shrimp popping around, always throw around those. I have picked up, excuse me, a lot of reds just pitching around oyster bars. And you guys that fish these inlets and creek areas a lot, when you come up on an oyster bar, these oyster bars are almost like a mound. So there's a deep area, usually on one side or the other, depending on how the current cuts around this oyster mound. And that is a great place to pitch around there because those predator fish are going to ambush from those deeper areas as bait gets flushed around the oyster bar, and then the predator fish are going to come around and snatch them up. So the oyster bars and shallow areas, 3 feet or less, is where I am hitting and hunting redfish. About a month ago when I was at Polly's, it was dead low tide. I pushed back into a creek. That video is up. I can't remember what the title of that video is, but watch that video. I was in such skinny water. I didn't have my drive in. I had to get back to the creek that I wanted to go to, it was only like 3 inches of water. And, I could float right across there, get right into it. And brother, it was on. It was on. So, yep, I hope that helps you out. Again, throw shrimp patterns, paddle tails, and be aggressive with your presentations. Because when redfish are hunting, this bait that they're hunting, they're trying to get away from these redfish. They don't want to be eaten. So don't do a real slow, meticulous, pop off of the bottom, because that's not natural for those redfish. Okay. So when you throw out a paddle tail, especially if you see a redfish working, kind of buzz them and work them pretty quickly, because that's more natural of that bait fish trying to get away from those redfish because they don't want to be eaten. So just another little quick tip for you. Tony, he says, is there anything that says a rubber mesh landing net is better for the fish than a heavy string type net? I have never seen anything that, I don't even think there's any real research done on the type of netting to use. Everybody says that the rubber netting is better for the fish. It doesn't take off as much of a slime coat. It doesn't cut into the fish. It doesn't, I honestly don't know. The little bitty net that I use, it's rubber coated. And the only reason I use the rubber coated net is it decreases my hook getting caught in the net. I used to have a string net, and when I would net my fish, my hook would get caught in the strands of that string, and I don't seem to get caught up as much in the rubber coating net. But as far as fish health, um, you know, I think you can really use either one. I haven't seen any research with anybody saying that, a rubber net is better for the health of the fish. I think it's more about how you handle the fish and release that fish back into the water. So hopefully that helps you out, buddy. Mark just threw something up there. He says, "What do you usually throw around those areas?" Okay, so this was actually one of the topics I was going to cover tonight. Since we kind of shifted gears here a little bit, let's go ahead and let's jump into the summer tactics right now. So during the summertime, let's start right off at dawn. So right when the sun is starting to peak up, or right before the sun peaks up, I'm throwing a top water. And right now, I'm throwing a Mirror Top Pup, and it's in the red head. So the head is red and the body is white. And again, if you guys watch my videos, I don't know. I guess it's my confidence color. I really like that color. But people use a lot of different colors. They use black, they use white. You have to remember, when these fish are underwater and they're looking up to see that bait profile, they're not really seeing color. It's going to be a dark color or maybe a white color. That's really what they're seeing. If you guys want to test it out, go into a pool, put your lure on top of the water, and look up and see what color it is. I don't think they can pick out colors. You may be able to pick out some flash with some silvers, but whites, dark colors, maybe a flash a side with silver on it would probably work the best. And then I'm moving on to paddle tails. Anywhere from 3, 4, and 5 inch paddle tails is what I'm going to be throwing during the summertime. And again, that's going to kind of mimic what I'm seeing up into the creeks. If I'm seeing a lot of smaller stuff, I'm going to go to, excuse me, the Z-Man minnows, the 3 inch, and then go all the way up to the diesel minnows, the 5 inch. And I'm going to try to match the hatch the best I can. So I love the natural colors. And so, any type of shad colors, whites, the pearl blue glimmer is a really good one. Pearl white is another really good one. So I try to stay as natural as possible. Red bone, the right stuff, Houdini. I really love those kind of natural colors. And then I'll throw a shrimp pattern. So top water, paddle tail, and a shrimp. So anywhere from the prawn star, you guys know I love the voodoo shrimp. Any type of a Ned shrimp from Z-Man, the Magnific shrimp from Jelly Baits, which unfortunately you can't get anymore, but I've got up here on my board. So any type of a shrimp pattern, and weights on these, you have to, it depends on what you're targeting. So if you're targeting flounder, you definitely want to make sure that your bait is on the bottom. So, a little bit heavier weight to make sure that these are on the bottom. So a nice 1/4 ounce would be great. I love a 3/16. And if you're in really shallow water, again, 2 feet, 3 feet, an eighth of an inch will get you right on the bottom very quickly. And that's kind of the weight for redfish too, because you have to remember, redfish are bottom feeders. So they're going to be down, rooting around on the bottom and vacuuming up shrimp and attacking small bait fish and paddle tails. Okay. So those are going to be my main three that I have tied on all the time. So hopefully, again, Mark, hopefully that helps you out. Tyler, Been on a dry spell for the Reds. Been killing the flounder and black drum with shrimp and mud minnows, but no Reds recently. Yeah, now I'm going to be heading out this weekend and I want to be targeting some redfish. And so I know that the tide for the weekend is basically it's going to be incoming for the first 2 or 3 hours and then it's going to be outgoing the rest of the day. And so what I'm going to be doing is heading towards the flats and working the flat areas and around grass lines. You may even want to try some popping corks around grass lines at high tide. Get about 12 to, I'm going to say, 24 inches of leader, and either put a shrimp or a small paddle tail on the bottom of that with about a 1 inch, like a trout eye or a jig head on the bottom, just to make sure it's there, and pitch around these grass lines and pop around. You may be able to pick up a red off the grass lines. So, but that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be hunting some reds. And again, if you can get out at low tide, the the tough thing during the summer is the water starts to get so hot that the way back into these creeks, the water temperature is going to be extremely elevated. So I remember Captain Chris Regan about a month ago saying he saw some water temperatures last year in Merle's Inlet, way back up in some creeks that was touching 100 degrees. Now, guys, that is absolutely brutally hot for these fish, and they are not going to stay back in those areas. They are going to be hunting for cooler water. And what is cooler water? Current and deeper holes. Okay. So, again, look for deeper holes, look for some current. They are not going to be rooting around in these stagnant waters. They're going to be trying to regulate their body temperatures the best they can, and that's going to be deeper water and some current. So, again, deeper water is relative. I think I said it last week too. If you're in 3 feet and you go to 4.5 feet, the bottom at 4.5 feet is going to be cooler. If you don't believe me, again, jump into your pool at the shallow end in the middle of the day. The shallow end is going to be really warm, but go and jump into the 4 or 5 foot section, and the bottom of that 5 foot section is going to be a lot cooler than the 2 foot section. It's going to be the same thing in the inlets. Okay. So kind of keep that in mind. Look for these deeper holes too. Um, John, great to have you in here, buddy. Says, do you think when you are in that dark water, do you think color makes a difference? Light or dark baits, 5 feet or more. Okay. So usually in darker water, I will use a darker bait for some contrast. Now that sounds a little bit weird, but black will stand out in these stained darker waters. I do carry let me see. Yeah, hang on 1 second. Let me just grab this real quick for you. So yeah, I do carry some darker baits with me, and this is a jelly baits grub tail, but it's black and it's got some gold flake. And I think Z-Man also makes one, and I think it's called Gold Rush, and that is a really good one for darker water. So as the clear the water, so let's kind of work through the water column and color. So clear water, I want natural looking baits. If it's stained water, then I start going to like a new penny, that copper color. The right stuff is kind of like a dull brown, almost kind of like my hat up here, this drum spots hat. So those kind of colors. Also, a chartreuse works well. And then when you get into really dark stained water, then muddy water that's been churned up by rain, runoff from the creeks, it's muddy, then dark with a flash. I love to throw a small spinner bait with dark, muddy water. When I'm fishing down in Charleston, Charleston is notorious for darker stained water. I love throwing spinner baits. And again, if you bear with me 1 second. I'm going to pull off of my board here. This is a redfish magic. You guys know about all of those. Let me see if I can get it to focus in. So, a spinner bait is fantastic for dark water, stained, muddy water. And again, when I'm down in Charleston, I pitch those around docks. I'll reel them in nice and slow, or I'll jig these things and let them drop with that spinner, and it is absolutely deadly. So try that in conjunction with the colors. Okay. So yeah, I hope that helps you out. Charlie, man, guys, I really appreciate the questions tonight. This is awesome. This is this is why I'm doing this, man. So it says Charlie says, went fishing in Pawleys Island Creek with mud minnows yesterday afternoon. Did not have much luck. Any tips? Oh, wow. Usually mud minnows are just absolute, flounder candy. So I'm not exactly sure why. See, yesterday afternoon may have been low tide or something along those I'm trying to think of the tide loop right now, so it may have been around low tide. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what kind of rig you were using, but usually, if you have a mud minnow right on the bottom, you will catch something. Now, when I'm fishing a mud minnow, especially for like flounder, I'll use either like a Carolina rig with that real short leader. Uh, Charlie just said, yeah, it was around low tide, 1 to 3. Okay. Yeah. So when I am doing that, I'll use a Carolina rig, and that mud minnow will be off the bottom just a little bit, 3 inches, I'm going to say, something like that. And as I cast it out, I just won't let it sit and soak. I'll actually drag it onto the bottom, reel up the slack, drag on the bottom, so he's just kind of moving along and work in those areas. If you're at low tide, definitely look for deeper holes, because these fish are going to drop off into deeper holes at low tide, especially during the summertime, because they're looking for some cool water and there's no water up in the creeks. So look for that. Also, there is a tip that I told Captain Bob last week. Little side note: Captain Bob interviewed me on the Hook with Captain Bob, and it has been running all week on iHeartRadio on the Outdoor Radio Network. So if you guys haven't had a chance to listen to that, go over to iHeart, search Outdoor Radio Network, and catch that episode. We had a ton of fun. But one of the things that I do during the summer, especially at low tide, and I'm going to bring up a map here since you guys are watching. So this is just a random map down in Charleston. And right down here at the bottom right hand corner, this is the inlet to the ocean. This is actually Breach Inlet. And so, what I'll do at low tide, because the water temperature in the ocean is going to be the most consistent. So during the summertime, when you pull up these buoys that give you the ocean temperature, let's just say it's 85 degrees, okay, just for an example. During high tide, middle of the summer, way back up here in the flats, where the sun's baking down on this 1 to 3 feet of water, this water temperature is going to be 90 degrees. Okay. As this water drops back out, the cooler water is going to be towards the ocean. So, as the tide starts coming back in, that cooler water is by the inlet. So, the way I fish during the summertime when it's low tide, I will push towards or get as close as I can to the ocean or the inlet. So when it does start to switch around, that cooler water is going to be pushing in first. Now, whether I can get out towards the inlet or whatnot. I don't know, but I try to get to those bigger bodies of water that is being fed by the ocean where that cooler water is coming from. Okay. And that's where those fish are going to be. Not that they're going to gravitate all the way down out there, but again, the main point is they're going to be looking for cooler water. So, down at Pawleys, that big inlet there on the north end, where there's a lot of good fishing kind of up towards Litchfield, down towards the North Causeway Bridge, past the North Causeway Bridge, that inlet fluctuates that water temperature pretty well. So, hopefully that helps you out a little bit. But, again, the biggest thing is, looking for current and finding those cooler waters. Smallcraft angler Brian jumped on. Nice to see you in here, buddy. It says, been having great success in Charleston with a 3-inch Hercules swim bait with a small willow blade. So is that an underspin on that? So that's awesome. Yeah. So if you guys aren't catching Smallcraft Angler on YouTube, I know he's been fishing down in Charleston quite a bit, and he has just been absolutely just racking up the redfish catches, which, good on you, man. I need to get some tips from you. Maybe next time we need to get you on here and we need to pick your brain because you are absolutely just crushing it right now, man. Congratulations. That's absolutely awesome. But yeah, the 3-inch Hercules swim bait with a small willow blade. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, he said, yes, it's a underspinned willow blade. Awesome. Awesome. So that's awesome, guys. Guys, it has been Tony, and his son is a fishing machine too. Yes, he is. He is. Yeah, his son has been fishing with him. And Brian, I may not get his name right. I think it's Colton. But yeah, he has just been absolutely. I don't know. I think he's been out fishing his dad there a couple of times. I think he caught a 29-inch redfish that, I mean, just that's absolutely awesome. Yeah, it's Colton. So, yeah, absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. Tyler says, do you enjoy getting out to the reefs at all, or is the inshore game your main preference? Yeah. I'm usually inshore. I don't go offshore at all in my kayak. I try to stay, in that shallow water. I'm not a big water guy. I've been out a few times. Not that it really bothers me. It has one time, but I was down in Mexico fishing. But that's really the only time it's bothered me. But I love the inshore game. I love the shallow water stuff. I love hunting, reds and flounder, and getting on a good trout bite. So yeah, that's my main game. That's my main game is staying inshore. So guys, this has been absolutely fantastic. This has been such a great night. I really appreciate all of you guys. Guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Give this a like. I've got a new video dropping tomorrow morning. Give that a watch. I got on a pretty good little flounder bite. I'm going to be going out this weekend, and I was thinking about going down to Charleston, but I think I'm going to stick close to home because I've got some honeydew things that I just got to get caught up on. So I really don't want to burn whole days going down to Charleston, but I plan on getting down there, here in the next couple of weeks. So I think I'm going to be fishing, either Merles or Pawleys or something along those lines. And like I said, I'm going to be hunting some reds and some flounder again. It is a full moon, so the trout bite may be on. So get out there and look for some trout. But guys, again, I appreciate you. Like, subscribe, share it with your fishing buddies. Tell everybody about the live show. Again, I really enjoy doing these, and catch my new video dropping tomorrow morning. So guys, again, thank you so much, and I will see you all next week. I'm not going anywhere. So guys, appreciate you, and I will see you guys next Thursday. You guys have a great week and tight lines.